Well, thank you. We have a time for a couple of questions here. We'll go. The first two hands were these two ladies right here. Let's do that, and then we'll do you two ladies, and then we'll be done.
I know some Democrats have also pointed to oil corporations for price gouging. One, do you all agree with the premise that this could be a product of corporate greed? And I know some of them saying that they want to receive excess profits that they believe the oil companies are benefiting from right now, and try to either put it directly in Americans' pockets or try to subsidize that gas tax holiday.
Well, we've got a couple of experts behind me, but let me take the first quick shot at this and then let my colleagues answer. But the bill you're talking about is the so-called windfall profits tax proposal. The notion is based on the fact that oil companies are just artificially driving the price of oil up because they have a chance in this market. The fact is that the price of oil is not controlled by these companies. They don't set that price. The price of crude oil today in the world is a part of a very deep and rich and competitive global market. And that is what supply and demand in that market determines the price of gas. The bill you're referencing is one, if I understand it correctly, calls it a windfall profit tax if our producers produce more fuel, more gas. And they'll be taxed on producing more, not raising the price. In other words, do not produce any more gas. If you do, then we will say that you're gouging. And you're making more money because you're selling more gas, not because you've gouged the price. Now, have I got that right?
Just a quick comment on that.
Referring to one, I'm referencing another one. Maybe the mechanism might be a little different.
Because it's easy to get whiplash trying to watch this, because you have the frightened four, the Democrats who are running this year, who the four of them came out with a bill to do a gas tax holiday, to say people will then lower their rates by about 18 cents, or which to me is just a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. They put the bullet hole into the energy industry, and now they want to put a little Band-Aid over it by lowering it. Oh, but only until after the election. Then if they get reelected, going right back up. So those are those four. And then you have 12 others who want to put additional taxes if they produce more. We're still 1.3 million barrels of oil a day less being produced right now than we were before the pandemic. We need to produce more. And they say we're going to penalize the companies that produce more by increasing a tax on them. It's going to raise the prices for people. So, they got their own war going on in the Democrat Party right now. Yes, ma'am, you were next.
Can I just real briefly touch on that? Because we see this time and again. Look, we have to just follow market forces here. We can bring more production on, more supply into the market, and that will help lower the price. And we hear these accusations from Democrats all the time about how markets are failing us. Well, when prices decrease, they'll allege predatory pricing. When prices go up the same rate across different companies, they'll allege parallel pricing. And then when prices increase, they'll allege monopolistic pricing. So regardless of the pricing, the Democrat answer is markets aren't working. Well, what we need to do here is frankly, it's the exact opposite. We need to marshal our market forces by increasing supply, and that will lower the price. We know that.
Yes,
Yeah, it was back here.
The Republican General Assembly and Republican governor in Georgia, as well as the Republican governor in Maryland, have signed temporary gas tax suspensions that you guys have just described as gimmicks and Band-Aids on a bullet hole. So do you say that to them? Do you think those state suspensions are also gimmicks and not effective?
Well, I would just say every state has the right to determine its own policies. I think that a gas tax holiday, if you will, is something that every American would say, I'd love to have. It's 18 cents on that gallon of gas if it really does come off of the whole gallon. There are economists who say that it won't work, that it'll actually drive the price of gas up, or that it won't change the price of gas. But what American wouldn't say that they want to have an elimination of a part of their taxes? I think it's a gimmick. Even if you accept it as on face as an 18-cent change in this chart, it's not a solution. And the main thing is, it's not a solution to what caused that price. it doesn't have an impact on that price unless the economists who say it will make it go up are right. So I don't know. I just tell them that, but it's their job. They can do what they want in their own state.
And the only other thing I would add to that is, and I assume they weren't going after the federal tax holiday because they don't have the right to do that. It's probably, what do you say, a Maryland and a Georgia, and I'm not sure what the tax rates are in those states for the specifics of this of the gas. Hillary.
Oil and gas groups wrote a letter to the president last week talking about the backlog of drill permits, saying that that needs to be cleared, and also talking about environmental reviews that they have to undergo, and that can delay drilling for years. So if the Biden administration is serious at ramping up oil and gas production, should they immediately clear the backlog of drill permits and waive or expedite the environmental review process? And if they don't, can Congress do anything about that?
Well, the short answer is yes, they should. And Congress could, but only if we can get the majority in both the House and the Senate to move that kind of legislation. Did I get that wrong, John?
No, you're right.
And then there's an idea in the House and reportedly under consideration by the White House that we would send stimulus checks to people to help pay for gas and kind of subsidize that in some way. Would that ultimately make the problem worse if inflation is the root of part of why gas is rising?
My answer is yes, because essentially the inflation that we are seeing now is, I think, largely driven by the phenomenal amount of spending that has gone on from Washington, not just in this last year, but in the response to COVID and in other activities. And if you add more federal spending, even if it's to give some temporary relief in terms of a gas card or something, you are adding to the demand side of that supply and demand economy that we live in, and the end result ultimately will be higher inflationary pressures. We've got to deal with the supply side, and that's what the message has been from here.
Yeah, we're still 1.3 million barrels a day less made in the United States now than during the pandemic, and we need to get that up and to just send, whether it's checks, whether it's gas cards, any of those things, it doesn't contribute to the solution of having more available energy for Americans to buy when they go shopping. Yes, the last question.
Senator Schumer today pointed out that Republicans have blamed Democrats for delaying the aid sent to Ukraine, delaying actions against Putin. Senator Crapo, you want language codifying a ban on Russian oil to be added to the PNTR bill. Would that be delaying, though, that trade legislation from coming through?
It's an interesting thing. The bill you're talking about was originally a bipartisan, bicameral bill about 2 weeks ago.
Right, before the president.
Exactly. And at that time, the president intervened and said, stop that bill and take out the oil ban because I'm going to do it tomorrow. And what he wanted was, if I understand it right, he didn't want the language in the bill on the oil ban that dealt with his ability to withdraw the oil ban. In other words, to give Congress a right to review his actions on the oil ban. And so he himself delayed it. The House then delayed it and has still delayed having us move that forward. And now they've put me and the Republicans in a position of saying, wait a minute, you want to pass a piece of the response, but kill a piece of the response. And so it is true that slowing them down, what I said on the floor just before I came in here was, we only need to slow down for a few hours so that you can fix the bill. And we are ready to move immediately. But if there is delay, if they don't accept my offer to do exactly what was a bipartisan, bicameral solution, got over 400 votes in the House, but is sitting in the House right now with no action. If they refuse to move forward on that, who's causing the delay? And I guess I would say, yeah, I'm slowing their ability down to rush through and stop doing the bill, but what I'm doing is speeding up their ability to get the whole bill put together. Boy, I can't predict that. I had thought we would have one by now, and I hope that we have one by nightfall tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.